Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Level 1 News. Today is June 21st, and we're doing government and security. Or was it social? Social. Started with an S.
You just saw Elon Musk's name.
I did just see it, but I mean, to be fair, that could just be business, right? And not social media, though he does seem to ship.
He's a wild card. He could be in government, business, or social.
Yeah.
But the big story now
or nonsense
is Twitter. However, that is not the, often I wonder, like, what story should we open up with? Should we make it, like, lighthearted, or should we go with the hard-hitting stuff? I think this one's very important.
Yeah.
Because as much as we have maligned this tool when it was used against us and sanctioned it, didn't we sanction this whole
that
thing?
sounds right.
Yeah.
Now it seems to be that as long as we can control it, we would love to have it.
U.S. defense contractor in talks to take over the NSO Group's hacking technology. That's about all we've been talking about the last several weeks, and it's been in the news here for years. But here's the thing. This is software. So when we have a headline that says, take over, what they actually mean is NSO Group is just going to give them the source code and say, hey, if you want to run your own that you manage inside the United States, that's fine.
Well, I think they take control of giving it out too, right? They decide who gets it.
Probably.
I think it's a bit of a hot potato.
Yeah.
And you have to be at the top of the corruption ladder to hold that potato for any amount of time. So Israel's like, yeah, we're up there, but we're not number one.
It's a great way to continue to develop and work on the tool without actually giving it up. It's like if you're interpreting this as some kind of, anti-nuclear proliferation thing, it's not that.
Now, this is a third party again, but I mean, we've seen how the U.S. government deals with third parties and how it uses them. This is by proxy.
Yeah.
It belongs to the DOD after this.
And surely these tools would never be used to frame or malign innocent people for things.
That's never happened before.
That doesn't sound like us.
And it certainly wouldn't be used punitively to take a strike back at someone who embarrassed the powers that be, who's way better at them at this kind of thing, most likely.
The UK has approved WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange's extradition to the US. This is very sad.
Press F.
They also snuck this in at 4:59 p.m. on a Friday.
So, yeah, it's bad news for him, obviously. They've been sort of, wish-washy about this, but now there is an appeals process, but
He already went through one.
It's a 28-day window, I think, that he has. So at the end of those 28 days, if he is not successfully appealed, well, what are the chances of that?
Basically zero.
He's coming over here.
He's never been, or he was not on American soil when he's accused of violating the thing. He's just...
and also the witness has recanted.
Yeah.
You think they'll put him in Epstein's cell?
Yes. Ultimately, he will be in a cell very much like Epstein's, where the cameras simultaneously fail in a 5-mile radius.
Strange how that happened.
Yeah.
Well, when if anybody actually wanted to do any investigation into Epstein, they could look at, I don't know, maybe location data from all the law enforcement's phones. Because you can actually do that thing, except they don't want to. And because it's used sort of like against us and not for us, maybe this is a good idea.
Warren proposes sweeping ban on location and health data sales.
It's probably a net positive. I read this story looking for the catch. I was like, what's the problem with this? And there doesn't seem to be one, but...
The problem is the big tech companies lose a bunch of money.
Yeah.
The subheadline also is like, the bill comes as the Supreme Court could overturn Roe versus Wade. It's like, why don't they just go ahead and codify Roe versus Wade in law instead? Maybe that would be better. A better use of time.
Because you're never going to get it through the Senate.
Yeah.
We don't make laws anymore. We make executive actions and, just
We just,
sidestep it.
ping-pong it back and forth for ages.
It's important that when it swings back to the other side for the next president, you can undo it all and fight about it again. And that way, you keep the churn going.
It's a perpetual outrage cycle where nothing important actually gets accomplished.
It's like breaking windows to create jobs. And, of course, we know the big tech companies are getting a lot of flack from the government. And a lot of people kind of frame that as like, well, you're just anti-business. So some other businesses have stepped in and said, what about us?
U.S. bill to rein in big tech backed by dozens of small and big companies. Is this the one where the big tech companies are saying, we don't think this is going to work out the way that you intend to? Meanwhile, everybody else is saying, yeah, this sounds great. We should totally do this.
Yeah.
My favorite list of like all the little companies and groups that were involved, one of them was like the Booksellers of America or something like that. And I was like, they're doing that because they hate Amazon.
All those Bezos people have come home to roost.
Independent Business Alliance, Institute for Local Self-Reliance, Kelku Group. I don't know who they are.
Well,
Chamber of Commerce, like mom and pop type stuff. DuckDuckGo's in there. Spotify.
and Spotify, which
oddly
surprised
enough.
me. Yeah.
They talked about how it would benefit Spotify, even though they're big. And we have some new hacking laws that are meant to support researchers. So if you find, for example, Facebook stealing data, and in order to prove that, you have to get in there in a way that might be illegal, the new laws are supposed to be a little more tolerant of that. But
They're not even laws as much as they are memos.
that's right. It's more of a suggestion. But could that be used for people who are actually hacking? And where's the line? We might get a ruling on that.
Seattle-based Amazon software engineer goes on trial in test anti-hacking law. So the defense contends that this is someone who was a skilled software engineer, but wasn't really sort of read in on how things should be conducted in terms of security investigations, like going in and finding things, as you say, that maybe they shouldn't. And the prosecution argues that this person was breaking into systems, stealing data, and then setting up cryptocurrency mining operations.
I don't know about the crypto, but this person did have a lot of text messages that made it sound a little suspicious, like they weren't doing it in good faith, and major red flag history of mental health issues.
Yeah.
Major.
Yeah, so you wonder if it was a situation where it's like, I've tried to report this to these companies and they won't listen, so I guess I'm just going to use my access to mine cryptocurrency as a way to make money.
Yeah.
Since I can't make anything else. And it's like, well, it doesn't work that way.
But really, like all the letters they sent were in human feces.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's going to be interesting. Now,
I won't answer my letters.
Now, the prosecution makes it sound really bad, but the only thing they're charged under is the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, which is kind of like a universal umbrella. If you violate the terms of service on the Level 1 website, technically charges could be brought against you under the CFAA. So if they were really setting up cryptocurrency mining and a bunch of other stuff, I'm surprised they haven't been charged with more.
Yeah, I think probably what's going to doom them is those text messages because they showed maliciousness. And if not an attempt, a desire to benefit from it, to make money from it.
Is it, gosh, wouldn't it be funny if, and then it's like, ooh, yeah, you can't do that.
In fact, that wouldn't be funny at all. But you know what is funny? Elon Musk and the plate of crow that he is having to eat because it continues. The blitzkrieg against him continues. They're digging up every possible reason to destroy this man, and they're going back as far as they have to.
Elon Musk sued for $258 billion over alleged Dogecoin pyramid scheme.
That's quite a sum.
Was this recent? No, this is based on tweets from like 5 years ago.
What's the statute of limitations on securities fraud?
Yeah, I mean, it probably was a pyramid scheme, but I mean, it's been like, what, 2018? When was he tweeting about that?
But he didn't. Was he involved in the creation of Dogecoin?
I don't think so.
No,
He just constantly tweeted about it
Yeah.
and then he dumped it.
just hyped it. He has, looking back, I don't think he was committed to crypto the way he claimed he was.
Yes.
Yeah, I think he pumped it up and
But
dumped it.
is that a crime? I guess we'll find out.
Is it securities fraud? Some people would really like for it to be because it makes some other problems go away.
I read this, and yeah, of course, we probably should do this, and I'm sure that the Russian people, in a lot of ways, don't get real information. But then I think about NewsGuard, and I'm like, oh wait, are we really on top of the hill here? Is somebody going to do this for me? I need this.
Exclusive. U.S. targets Russia with tech to evade censorship of Ukraine news. There's only the most tangential mention of Tor, which actually does receive U.S. government funding for exactly this kind of thing. But this article talks about how U.S. companies are maybe going to provide VPN access and a whole bunch of other stuff to circumvent network controls
They
on
got
the internet.
millions of dollars for that. Quite a bit of funding.
Yeah,
You wonder how many of those accounts are going to be fake.
a lot.
How many of those accounts are going to be Russian hackers just abusing some VPN company?
A lot. I'm going to use your VPN access to attack companies in America. And it's just like, this is why we can't have nice things.
Yeah, we were just doing that to be nice and not for any other reason.
Right. Yeah, we don't have any interest in the outcome of that war. And Europe, they did their whole net neutrality thing, and it seemed to be pretty good. But like with most government regulations, you find out after some time that there are massive loopholes, and they're being exploited, and you got to try to clean that up.
Europe cracks down on data cap exemptions in update to net neutrality rules. ISPs can't use 0 rating to exempt apps from data caps, the EU agency says. So some of these were paid and some of these were unpaid. They were just part of a deal. It's like, we're not paying to have our data exempted. We're just participating in a partnership. And one of the things in that partnership is exempting the data from your app and being counted against the customer. It's like all of that is not going to fly, which is good. It's good for the consumer ultimately.
It's so confusing at this point. Like just make it one way or the other.
I'm surprised somebody hasn't tried to argue that the whole market for selling data is some kind of like capitalistic free market where, company A has a deal with provider B and then can sell their data block units on an open market. And then depending on, who's doing what, then you get arbitrage of selling low and, selling high and buying low. And it's just ultimately data packets. It's ultimately all the same ones and zeros.
I think one of the problems that emerged from that is the phone card scams they used to do, like in The Sopranos.
Yeah.
They would bulk buy them, sell them on the street, and then never pay the bill, and they'd all get turned off. So you had all these, just front companies completely robbing people with phone cards. They would do the same with data.
Yeah.
If we made it into a market like that.
I don't think we should. I just think that that's the logical conclusion of playing the data cap game is that ultimately it becomes a market like that.
But I think the reason you don't do that is because, the regulatory capture, right? These guys would never allow it.
Yeah.
That's a cash cow. That's a cash bison.
They want to make that cash for themselves. They don't want it to be a free market, as they claim.
And the EU, of course, their big war on tech is going on, and quite a loss here.
Yeah.
A big $sign loss. Maybe they were too greedy.
Qualcomm wins the fight against the $1 billion EU antitrust fine. Again, Qualcomm, you really got to look at the whole Apple versus Qualcomm case. Qualcomm really wasn't behaving atypically for a company. Meanwhile, I would say that Apple was very egregiously doing anti-competitive things in that suit here in America. There's a lot of parallels, I think, with this case in the EU. And I think a lot of the incumbents really talked up abusive, quote unquote, abusive things Qualcomm was doing, but they weren't really. They were just like, we own this technology. We think it's worth this. Other people are paying this. Pay us.
And they agreed. Don't agree if you don't like it. Now I wonder, this, because of the pace of bureaucracy, this was probably already in the works, right? Don't you think? But if
the timing is suspicious.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to say. Like the never let a crisis go to waste. What sweet timing for this. Because this comes just as crypto provider after crypto provider is like, oh, guys, guess what we don't have anymore? Guess what you're never getting back?
EU aims to clinch deal on landmark crypto law this month. It was waiting in the wings for a couple of years now. And finally, now is the opportune time to get this thing passed.
They're still arguing about whether or not NFTs count as crypto.
That was a late ad.
Because they wrote it last year.
Yeah.
But we will see about that. I think there probably will be a lot. I mean, if they have a public hearing, you're going to have a lot of angry people willing to come and say, yes, this must be regulated. I lost everything.
Yes.
Even though they're just FOMO idiots.
The families, it's like, I'm going to put my entire house on the... No, please no.
And where one big tech wins, Apple has lost, although they've kind of spun it as if this were a compromise. It is not a compromise. Apple hates this.
Apple giving up ground in its App Store fight with Dutch regulators and Tinder. So basically, all those weekly fines that we reported on every week for like a month and then we gave up because it was still happening. Apple has finally conceded they will allow third-party payment processors for these apps. Now, technically, historically, Apple was kind of looking the other way when allowing these payment processors. But as soon as they won their lawsuit against Epic, they said, well, let's clean this up. And then that's when these companies complained, and it's taken this long in order for that to get sort of resolved. And it was resolved not in Apple's favor.
They're also going to cut 3% off of their take as another concession, I guess. I think that's to prove that they're not trying to just keep the money for themselves. Like that gives them a little bit more argument where, no, we're just doing this for security. It's not about the money.
It's kind of about the money,
Yeah,
but it's a little
totally,
bit.
Absolutely about the money.
You don't get to $1 trillion company without making a few enemies.
It's certainly not about the Dutch finding their perfect mate. Apple doesn't care at all about that. Now, if we look at the EU, as they are suddenly standing up and saying, all right, we got to get a handle on this crypto thing. This thing is a mess. Perhaps the UK's timing was bad in the same vein.
We want to make Britain a crypto hub, but with investor protections, says UK's digital minister. It's like,
Yeah, I don't know how many people you're going to find who are ready to jump into that market right now.
Yeah.
I don't, your 401k and your retirement account doesn't really have a lot of protections anymore. Those have been whittled away over the last 20 years or so. Your pension, yeah, there's not like.
We're not going to get to retire, are we?
I mean, if the stock market continues to, if they do what they should do and raise the interest rates, it's going to get smashed.
Yeah.
I don't know. They do love that stock market. They might protect it.
As long as they can.
I mean, we have people like Nancy Pelosi making those decisions, right? She lost. Did you see? I can't remember what her total was. She has lost a ton of money.
If she's losing money, what hope do we have?
Exactly. Yeah.
I saw that Warren Buffett gave away like $45 billion. So I guess he's like, you know what? I've had a good run. I'm out. I'm retiring.
Yeah. I mean, well, I think nature's going to take care of that real soon.
Also, do you think he thinks the guillotine's coming and he's like, I need to get some good press? Like,
No, he's 93. He probably just wants to enjoy his Diet Coke and just,
ice cream, eats ice cream for breakfast.
Yeah.
It's probably like a cognitive thing, right? He's probably making some gaffes at the board meetings. And another thing the UK is doing is they're looking specifically at Apple and Google and saying that is a duopoly.
UK regulator plans to launch probe into Google and Apple's mobile duopoly. The CMA is also investigating Google Play Store rule that requires developers to use its payment system. Why not Apple? It's like, well, there's other things happening in with regard to Apple's mobile payment thing, a la the Dutch thing.
But who competed with them, right? I mean, like, does UK have Huawei phones? Not now, right?
Not now.
Do they have ZTE? What other brands do they have?
Well, there's no other app store, really.
yeah. A lot of people use Android or Apple.
Like, you want to sideload an application? And it's like, there's a lot of evidence against Google sort of discouraging the whole sideloading thing.
You mean evidence for?
Evidence. Oh, yeah. Evidence for discouraging against sideloading. Yeah.
Now, here's a story that they did immediately delete. This could have just been someone who was overenthusiastic. It's really hyped about their space exploration
This
jobs.
should be a nonsense. It's a nothing burger.
But they claim that they're seeing the signals.
China detects possible, quote unquote, extraterrestrial civilization, state media reports. And then the report was deleted. There's not a lot of details.
But in the article, they say that it's actually very highly likely just radio interference. It's like,
Yeah. Well, maybe that's KXAN,
Yeah.
just hiding the truth.
Editorializing.
Right.
Or they were accidentally pointed their radio telescope at a region of space that currently contains the Voyager space probe. And it's like, there's something out there. Send it radio back. I was like, that's one of ours.
It's ours.
And well, I've been consuming a lot of China media on YouTube, and this is a big thing over there. These banks are like, first of all, they went, we can't do online or mobile transactions because we have to update the system. That was like 2 months ago, and they still haven't put it back. And then it's in rural places, so you often have to take a long train or bus trip or something. And then when they get there, they just won't talk to them. Like they have videos where the teller just keeps looking away, like they just will not. So then they got into a group and organized. What do you do about that?
China's bank run victims plan to protest. Then their health codes turned red. In order for you to be able to move and navigate through like a train station or mass transit, your QR code on your phone has to scan green, saying that, you haven't come into contact. Well, when these people showed up to protest, as soon as they got near the bank, they turned red mysteriously. And then they were sent to a quarantine hotel, but they didn't really follow the quarantine protocols, which suggests that this app very, very, very sophisticatedly is not for health anymore.
Not only did they not do the quarantine, some of them they put right back on the train. And the rule is if you're red, you get nowhere near a train.
Yeah.
But they were like, they didn't even have to go through the checkpoints. The security just hustled them right onto the train.
They literally were like, go home, peasant.
Yeah.
And some of these people, it's, their life savings. So they're understandably freaking out.
Yeah. It makes me wonder what I should be doing with my life savings here in the US.
Yeah. Well, we have, FDIC. I don't know if they have something like that, but even if they do, I think someone's trying not to let that happen.
Yeah.
Someone's trying not to let that happen at such a high level that the health app is already so corrupted and so compromised that this seemed to have been very easy for the authorities to do, to the extent that as soon as people got far enough away from the bank, their app turned green again.
Also, they're doing, I think it's every 72 hours you have to PCR test, nucleic test, right? And that's how your QR code functions. So they're doing that so often, that's insanely expensive. But the Communist Party is just like, local governments, you deal with that cost. So the local governments have started charging people for the test. So if you drive delivery, which is like a huge job now because Shanghai's locked down, you have to pay the equivalent of 74 cents US every time you get tested, which you have to do every 2 days. Now, that sounds like a small amount of money, but these people who are delivery drivers in China, well, they're making like $1,000 a year.
Yeah.
So not a small cost for them.
Why are people lying flat? Says the party.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And in India, we've seen this kind of thing before from India. They kind of went back to the same playbook.
Police linked to hacking campaign to frame Indian activists. New details connect police in India to plot to plant evidence on victims' computers that led to their arrest. We've had things like that happen here in America, too. Remember the NSO Group story, the very first one?
Here it is.
It's a little more obvious in this case. Now, one of the smoking guns that they found, and the people that found this out were not the Indian authorities. It was third-party guys. So, because one guy got arrested and then got out, and he took his laptop to these people, and they're like, all right, we'll investigate it. There was a Word document describing how he was planning to kill some politicians or something. It was authored by someone's Word account other than his. And then they found that there was someone had changed the recovery information on his account so they could take back over if he figured it out. Guess who it belonged to? A policeman, a police chief. So they're bad at it.
Imagine he's using his .gov address.
They just need some more practice, and they won't be as bad at it, and it won't be as obvious. And that's the real darkness. Everybody watching.
I'm sure they're getting in plenty of reps. I'm sure this was not isolated. And India also is cracking down on online by trying to prevent VPNs so that people can't get away from the spying eye of the government. And VPN firms are looking at the law and saying, oh, you know what? Yeah, this pretty much makes us not able to operate here.
VPN firms are removing servers in India to avoid customer data sharing rule. We reported on this like 3 or 4 weeks ago, and it was basically if you operate a VPN server in India, you're going to have to retain customer details, and you're going to have to be able to respond to complaints from the police. But as we see, that is perhaps not a good idea.
One of the VPN providers said that they had some alternatives they were going to do. They didn't say what, but I'm not sure how you get around that.
You just don't have servers in India, but that you can still connect to over the internet, I guess. But then how do you take money?
Yeah, I don't think they'll allow that. I think they'll shut those down because that's you're purposely bypassing their law at that point, right? And here's a terrifying reality that I think we're probably heading toward.
Yeah.
I think this is probably the vanguard, and people are going to be like, "Oh, that's such a good idea. We should do it everywhere." But of course, this begs the question, who gets to decide what an insult is?
Japan makes online insults punishable by 1 year in prison in wake of reality TV star's death.
They did give some guidelines, although they're very vague. But one of them is it can't be like if there's no truth involved with it. But we're in a place right now where the truth is completely subjective. I mean, it's not, but we have to pretend that it is. We have to just pretend that concrete truths are not real. And if the government decides it's different, then how do you know? How do you know what reality is?
If I call someone a poo-poo head on Twitter, will I be in prison for a year?
Is their head covered in feces at all times? Maybe you get away with it at that point.
Are they coming for the 12-year-olds on Xbox Live?
I don't think that would
First they came for the 12-year-olds on Xbox Live, and I did not speak up.
And we have a new contender that's stepping up against the big tech companies. I don't think they're too worried about this one.
Nigeria's internet regulator releases draft to regulate Google, Facebook, TikTok, and others. There wasn't really a lot of substantial information about what the regulation is going to be.
They have this set of rules. It looks like they kind of copy pasted from the EU.
Yeah.
They was this the one where they were supposed to open up a local office, but they never have?
Yeah,
Yes.
establish a legal entity.
That was the very first one.
Register with the country's corporate affairs commission is the number one bullet.
Well, they had already agreed to do this. Like Twitter and some other companies had already agreed to do this at the beginning of the year, but they didn't.
Yeah. So
I do kind of wonder with a lot of countries making these sort of laws where it's like you have to have a presence here or whatever. Is this just going to make it so like people can't run larger websites unless they have a ton of money?
yeah, well,
Because like no one can afford to have that many
I
offices or whatever.
guess you just need one guy, right? You could do it, but I don't think that's as much about trying to put up a gate as it is for them to be able to pull something down immediately
Right.
or fine you into oblivion because you don't have the infrastructure to do that quickly. And with enough volume, they could saturate whatever you have, right? Like if they come at you with enough requests, like let's think about the DMCA requests, right? Like how many do they plaster thousands, millions of those every day. So if you're the Nigerian local office guy, your life's going to be hell because you got a backlog. And if you don't get to them within 24 hours, now you get fines. So in a way, I guess they are making it impossible.
Yeah.
Now, Nigeria is also doing something sort of revolutionary, but they are purposely leaving out crypto. This is not about crypto.
Nigerian bourse to adopt blockchain for settling trades by 2023. This is their stock market, and this is really just to try to avoid things like the GameStop stock shorting thing that's going on. Maybe was that your read of it?
And to instead of having a clearinghouse and settling all that way, to use the blockchain as the clearinghouse.
Yeah,
And make sure that everything is
as a way to try to prevent fraud.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And when they say bourse, I assume this is not just the stock market. This is going to be commodity markets too. It's going to be oil and all the stuff, any kind of all those precious metals that are coming from there.
Water now.
So the blockchain is not for the intrinsic value of the blockchain, but as a security control system.
Right. And a way for you to be able to prove that transactions did or did not happen.
Yeah.
Like an involatile ledger.
This shows those are my stocks that you're trading with, and I didn't give you permission to do that.
And here's one that should not shock anybody, but it is disgusting. And this just goes to show you that. Now, do you think this was purposely malicious, or is this just third-party web developer that's like, oh, we put that on everything?
Yeah, third-party web developer. Yeah.
Well, why would anybody build a website without the metapixel?
Facebook is receiving sensitive medical information from hospital websites. Turns out if you embed the Facebook tracking pixel in websites, it's going to read the forms that are on the website. And guess what? That's going into a database.
Some of the forms had a drop-down where you chose your disease, and it had your name.
Would you like to share your diagnosis on
Right.
Facebook?
So Facebook definitely got, they pointed out one was like colon cancer. So Facebook got their name, address, phone number, and colon cancer with that click.
So that's why I started getting those flyers in the mail.
Well, so you're going to start getting ads on Facebook. It's like, is your liver failing? Hot livers in your area.
One weird trick to stop liver failure. And YouTube Shorts, man, we tried the YouTube Short thing, and people hated it. That might be the vocal minority, but it didn't seem like it moved the needle very much. It wasn't worth the effort.
Yeah.
However, apparently we're in the minority because it's really popular.
YouTube Shorts tops 1.5 billion logged in monthly users, touted as a feeder for long form content.
I don't know. I don't feel like we got a lot of new audience members from ours.
I should do really short form Linux shorts where it's just something that's just completely infuriating. Like
There should be something inflammatory about how one distro is better than another.
that'll probably feed the algorithm. Yes.
Yeah. Maybe that's the kind of content that does well in it. Maybe that's why we never moved the needle as much.
Someone was on my Twitter feed was pointing out the insanity of like the tech TikTok stuff, and it's all just a sea of bad advice and misinformation, and
Or not complete information because the format doesn't let you get into any kind of nuance.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, to speed up your hard drive, fill it up with extra copies of your games, and it's like, what?
I didn't include the story, but I just saw as I was browsing the news before we started, TikTok is now claiming they're not social media. They're an entertainment platform.
X doubt. If they're an entertainment platform, does that mean they need to be paying their creators?
Oh, weren't they going to start doing that, but a very limited way? I think.
Yeah. So
Very,
if you're an entertainment company, I would think you'd have to have contracts, and I don't know.
Well, you ever have? I know you've experienced this. Where everybody experiences this, where there's someone that you thought was dead, and then you see the headline that they're dead, and you're like, "Oh, I already thought they were dead. I can't believe they were even still alive."
Oh.
Huh?
Google Talk is surprisingly still operational, but that ends on Thursday. It's finally over for Google Talk.
To the graveyard, to another Google product.
To the giant pile of successful products acquired by Google, but then eventually shut down after they didn't understand why the product they acquired was successful.
And Elon Musk, the whole Twitter thing is still up in the air now. He's had his fire hose for what, a week, 2 weeks now?
Yeah.
Hasn't said anything about that, but they are letting him talk to the employees because the employees seem to be, rending their garments over all of this. I don't know that he improved the situation.
I
No.
don't think he did.
Here's what Elon Musk just told Twitter employees. Scroll down to his little slideshow. It's hilarious.
So we got, this is like a timeline thing.
One of the headlines was layoffs likely.
Well, that's coming to every company.
Yeah.
Once a billion active users. Talked about aliens for some reason. Doesn't care about being CEO. The free speech thing, they did not like that at all. Layoffs, yeah, layoffs are coming. Oh, he wants them back in the office.
Of course he
We know
does.
that's his thing.
Yeah.
Build trust.
He says all that, and then he's like, I know, I really do care about you.
And he loves Twitter. One of the things that he's talked about with the come back to the office thing was if you can prove that what was the word he used? It was basically, remember the Google AI guy? It was that same argument. Like, oh no, if you're really important to us, you can work from home. And in the internal Slack, somebody leaked the internal Slack message. They were like, we got to figure out how to be that. How do we
be
become
important?
that?
But it's sort of a vague, message to your employees. Like, you can work from home if I decide it. But there's no real.
I take the specifications from the customers and I give them to the engineers. Do you want the engineers talking to the customers?
Turns out that's better.
It's better, but the engineers don't like it.
Yeah, but after you've done it the other way, you'll do it.
Yeah.
To keep from doing it the other way.
Yeah.
And here, I don't know anything about this guy except that he has said some really dumb stuff. But it seems like he's amazingly, at his age, mastered social media where all of his political opponents can't.
Who is Colombia's old man of TikTok that could become the next president? He's 77. He's a civil engineer, and he uses TikTok and social media, and he has used that to build a platform for himself in Colombia, and because of that, he could be president. So for us, imagine, I could probably get behind a President MKBHD, but I'm not sure that I could get behind like President Logan Paul, because that would be just like, ugh.
I don't even know who you're referencing. God.
Marcus.
So this guy, one of the things that they point out is that even though there's a permanent record of all of his social media posts, he has no fear of just changing his opinion 180 degrees and coming out and being real serious about the new direction the next day.
Does he explain that as like someone made a different
No.
argument, or he's just like, no, someone else said this and now I'm going to repeat it?
No. Like there was one point where he was talking about something, and then afterwards, I can't remember what it was, but then afterwards, his next post was like, F that. Oh yeah, tracking. He wanted more tracking. He voted for that, or was going to vote for that, but then he made a TikTok video shouting F tracking. Or fracking, I'm sorry, fracking. Right. He wanted to open up regulations for fracking. They changed his mind. He immediately went anti-fracking.
The other way, huh?
I don't know. I mean, we've learned that celebrity and popularity trumps almost everything else when it comes to an election, right? So
That's sad. It's sad too because that guy again is like a 77-year-old man.
And that's probably making the incumbents super nervous. Probably nervous enough to disappear him.
You think
77 years old.
would that make them shut down TikTok? That would probably be a big backlash, though, right?
Yeah.
People probably love that.
I hope when I am in my late 70s, I'm not like, yeah, I should go into political office and be really stressed out in the last years of my life.
I don't. With the way the demographics are going, it's going to be all old people by the time we're old. There's going to be so many more old people other than us. It's going to be awful. But that's what we need.
We'll be able to talk to our AIs and robots while real people don't really want to deal with us because we're a reminder of what once was.
Our robots will probably just silently kill us.
Maybe that's for the best.
Maybe.
My elder care robot, it's like, I'm not programmed to tell you when your termination date is. It will be a surprise, I promise.
Constantly throwing the robot off.
Robot, I can swear I've already taken my medicine 5 times today. I feel I'm hot and I feel like I got hives all over me.
I feel euphoric.
Yeah, what do we got for tomorrow?
Business and security.
Nice.
We'll see you guys then. Bye.